Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from July 1st, 2023, and I'm recording this on December 26th, 2023. Yes, I'm recording this a little earlier in the week. I got family get-together plans most of the rest of the week. So yeah, we're doing this a little bit earlier than normal. So some news comes out and things change by the time you see this. I apologize. But as always, I do give those dates so you know when this information is actually most relevant. And as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. This week we're looking at 20 books. There were no overlaps between the two lists. So let's dig into this because we got a lot of books to go through. Let's see what we can learn about what made these books hot and what factors have affected them since to make them maintain or drop back in value. As always, if you've been paying attention, most of the time it pays to be patient on these books. But let's see what happened this week. First up, we have Barbie, #1 from 1991. And this was hitting the list because the movie was right about to come out. Hadn't come out yet, but was just about to. Back then, a 9.8 of this hit an all-time high of $300. Now a 9.8 will cost you $120 to $150. Raw copies 5 to 10. So yeah, this is a big old dumpster fire. This book has come way back down. Didn't matter that the movie was well received. Didn't matter that it made a ton of money. This comic has dropped way back because it's really just not something people think about and associate with Barbie first up. All right, with that was our only kind of movie, non-Marvel DC movie news book that made it. So we got a bunch of covers to get through. Let's start digging through those. First up, we have of the covers, we have World Tree #3, the Martin Simmons 1 in 100, which is the homage to the Department of Truth #1. Back then, raw copies of this were going for $125. Now it's a $60 to $100 book. There was one 9.8 sale, but it was $167. It was a signature. But overall, this is definitely a trap. This book has come way back. 1 in 100 only doing $125. That's not a really good sign for 1 in 100, for sure. Puppy dog is whining. We'll see if we get through this or if I'm going to have to start over. We'll see. Next, we have Dr. Aphra #33, the David Marquez variant. This is also the first appearance of Star Weird, but it's really just a regular variant with Ayla Secura on the cover, which is why people were chasing it. Back then, raw copies were going for $20 to $25, which is really good for a regular variant. Now it's a covered a $15 book, 9.8, 40 to 70. So yeah, this became a trap. There was a lot of these out there. It wasn't a secret variant. People knew about it. It was a regular order. So yeah, a lot of these came out. So yeah, it went crazy right off the bat, but definitely didn't hold, which is not unusual for regular B variants and that kind of stuff, unless people didn't know they were coming. All right, next we have Extreme Venomverse #4, the Takashi Okazaki 1 in 25. This is the first appearance of manga Venom Girl, and I don't ask me. And yeah, she's on this cover, so people were chasing this 1 in 25. 1 in 25 going all the way up to $100, which is, to me, is just crazy for another Spider-Verse character that most likely is not going to amount to much. Now it's a $50 to $85 book. 9.8 going for $150 to $200. So yeah, this has also turned into a trap. Surprised it's even going for this much still. Like, I don't know that this character has much of a future beyond this event, or maybe a few other events in the future, but people chase this book for big money, and it's already started to back up, and my expectation is it would continue to do so. Next, we have Silk #2, the Sawi Mengidu. I don't know how to pronounce that name. 1 in 25. Back then, it was going for $45 to $60, which is right around double ratio for 125, which usually means it's going to end up around ratio, maybe slightly above. This one actually did worse than that. It ended up under ratio, 15 to 20. So yeah, this one turned into a dumpster fire also. Yeah, just didn't. This book didn't hold at all. So it did worse than even typical for 1 in 25. That gets around double. Next, we have Amazing Spider-Man #25, the second print JR 1 in 25. This was going for $75 to $100, which is really good for 1 in 25, especially on the second print because there's usually a little bit fewer of those. And I don't know what to tell you about this book. There's a version with Gwen that has some sales and some listings. There's a version with Mary Jane with the black suit and Spidey in a black suit that has a few listings and sales, but I couldn't find a single listing or a single sale of this version of this cover, this 1 in 25. So we're gonna call it steady, I guess. This is one of those where I just kind of throw it in the steady category because I don't know what to do with it. So it'll be interesting to see if one comes up what it's going for. I'd be surprised if it's going for a lot. The other two versions don't go for that much, so we'll see. Next, we have Avengers #1, the second print Derek Chu 1 in 25. This one was also going for $70. Now it's a $10 to $30 book, 9.8, 50 to 100. Definitely a dumpster fire here. This is a really nice Scarlet Witch cover, but you can get with the trade. You can get this cover with the trade dress on the first print. So yeah, not necessarily that exclusive to just get this virgin variant. So it is not doing very well at all on the secondary market now. All right, with that, those are what's last of our covers. We have several Comic Buzz related books. So let's dig into those. We have Hulk Annual #1 on the list for the second week in a row. This is the first appearance of Eldest, which was appearing in the backup story. Last week when we talked about it, it was 5 to 15 right off the bat. Now, by this point, it was 18 to 25. And now it's back to a $5 to $15 book. 9.8 only going for 50. So yeah, this has turned into a trap. It's just a very minor key at this stage. We'll see if it becomes anything more. But yeah, $5 to $15 for a minor key. Pretty typical. 9.8 going for just above what it costs to make it. Yeah, that's pretty typical. Next, we have Ruins #1, the Trees Nelson variant. So we talked about this last week, that the internet discovered this thing existed, so they were buying it up, this 90s book. Well, this variant actually didn't come out till 2009, so it was sort of a reprint variant. So people were chasing this for $50 back then. Now it's a $10 to $30 book, another dumpster fire here. No surprise with the Ruins. It was not a series that people necessarily loved. I was surprised that they even got a reprint at any point. It was in a dollar bin book, and people realized it existed, and suddenly people were willing to pay money. Not a great bet. All right, next, we have Spider-Man #7, first appearance of Spider-Boy. I think this is around the time we got the news that he was going to get his own series, so that was what was causing us to hit the list again. Back then, raw copies were sitting around $20. 9.8s were sitting around 100, 110. Now it's a $20 to $40 book. 9.8, 190 to 120. I debate on whether to call this steady worth it or up worth it, but the raw copies are definitely more 30 to 40 than they are 20 to 30. So yeah, I think the raw copies have come up enough to call it up and worth it, even though the 9.8s are sitting steady. Still continues to be a lot of interest in this character, which, with so many Spider characters out there, it's a bit of a surprise to me, but it continues to go for pretty decent value. So, all right, next we have G.I. Joe #1 from 1982. Obviously, the first G.I. Joe in comics, and this was still way down from some of the peaks during the comic boom. But this was all about the Void arrivals, the new Energon universe, and we got the announcements at this point that we were getting the Duke book, we were getting the Cobra Commander book, so that's what was causing this to hit the list. Back then, raw copies were going for 50 to 150, 9.8 going for 810. Now it's a 50 to 175 book raw, 9.8, 725 to 900. So this feels steady and worth it. This book has stayed right in the same range that it was back then. There's a lot of interest here. It's still down from some previous peaks, but yeah, it's been pretty steady over the last 6 months, and still some continued interest as those series are getting ready to start coming out. All right, next we have Incredible Hulk #340, just a classic Hulk Wolverine cover that always has some interest. Back then, raw copies were going for 90 to 175, a 9.8 hit 1750. Now it's a $75 to $200 book, 9.8, 11 to 1300. So we call this down, and I'll be back because the 9.8s have taken a step back here. But raw copies are basically sitting right at the same value they were back then. Still always a ton of interest in this book. It's a classic cover and that people want. featuring 2 characters that people care a lot about. And yeah, so it's been pretty steady on the raw side, a little bit of a step back. That's why we're going to go with down, and I'll be back on the 9.8 side on the slab side. All right, next we have X-Men 94, the second appearance of Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, but the first Claremont on the X-Men. Back then, raw copies were going for $150 to $1,000. A 9.2 was going for $19.25. So this seemed to be sort of a market correction, as kind of like with the last book, it had taken a big step back after the comic boom. Seemed to be starting to move again as people were like realizing, hey, this book's pretty cheap right now. Now it's a $175 to $1,000 book raw, so right in that same range. Slight step up since then, $20.25 for 9.2. We're gonna call this steady and worth it though. Obviously, long term, this is a straight cash book, but right now, over the last 6 months, it's just been kind of steady, with maybe a slight tick up on the slab side, but not enough sales to really say for sure. All right, with that, we got only one MCU book this week, and that is Secret War #2, the first appearance of Quake, and this is actually the second print, so the sketch cover. And basically, this hit the list because we got rumors that we were going to get Quake again, that Chloe Bennett was going to appear in the MCU proper at some point, and coming back from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. But so far that hasn't happened, but that's what caused this book to hit the list. 9.8 of this was going for $160 back then. Now 9.8, only one recent 9.8 sale here. The second print, it went for $65. Raw copy, also one sale, $15. So yeah, that's a dumpster fire. Has not maintained, hasn't been a lot of sales. We keep getting this rumor, but so far it's never happened. Kind of like Nova. So, all right. With that, we have one DC movie book-related book, and that is Midnighter #1, the first solo series for Midnighter here. And he was rumored to be a part of the Authority. He's part of the Authority, rumored to be a part of the Superman movie. Raw copies were going for $3, 9.890. It's still a $3 book. It's steady, I guess, whatever, but not a lot of sales here, not a lot of interest right now. We'll see what role the Authority play in this new DC universe. All right, we got 5 books left. Next, we have, most of them related to either Sony animated stuff or Sony live action stuff. First up, we have SpiderGwen Shadow Clones, first Gwen Ock, and this basically hit the list because rumors we were going to get a Gwen Stacy Beyond the Spider-Verse kind of spinoff where we'd get a bunch of different versions of Gwen. Back then, raw copies were going for $5. Now it's a $3 to $8 book, so basically still a cover price book. Another steady, I'll be back. I said whatever back then on these last 2, and it stands. Not a ton of interest here, just people kind of guessing on a little bit of spec. And if you can do that for cover price, sure, why not? Next, we have Howard the Duck, the first appearance of Gwenpool in a story. Obviously, she was on the cover before this, but this is her first appearance in a story. Back then, raw copies were going for $12, 9.8 going for $99. But reminder, Gwenpool is not actually Gwen Stacy, at least. So just looks like her. Raw copies now are 5 to 15, so right in the same range. 9.8, 80 to 100. I call this down, and I'll be back because most of the sales are under 10. Most of the 9.8s are under 100. But yeah, not a whole lot going on here. All right, just 3 books left, I guess. All Sony live action. First up, we have Amazing Fantasy #1. First appearance of Anya Corazon. We got confirmation she was going to be in the Madam Web movie. Since then, we've seen her in the trailers. Back then, it was going for $40 raw. 9.8 hit $145. Now it's a $15 to $40 book raw. 9.8, $1 to $160. With that $160 sale being right around the time of the trailer. Since then, it's been a little lower. So we're going to call this down, and I'll be back. Character I enjoy, and we're going to get in the movies. Don't know that it's actually ultimately going to change the value of this book. Next, we have Amazing Spider-Man #209, first appearance of Calypso. This had to do with the Kraven trailer and everything else, and we know we're going to get her in that movie. Raw copies back then were $35, 9.8, $289. Still way, way down from the previous year when we first got announcements about the Kraven movie. Now it's a $5 to $50 book, raw, 9.8, 175, 200. So this is taking another step back. And I would be surprised if it really bounces back when the movie comes out. Down and I'll be back since the trailer. Down from the original announcements at the trailer. Yeah, this is just the pattern nowadays. Really, the best time to sell is when you've the first news anymore. It's not the trailer. It's not the movie. Last book, Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man 116, first appearance of the Foreigner. Another character we're supposed to be getting in the Craven movie. Back then, raw copies were going for $40. 9.8 going for $125. Now, raw copy only costs you $5 to $25. So, yeah, that's a dumpster fire. I doubt the Foreigner is going to be a big part of this movie. Even if he is, probably not going to amount to that much and not going to fundamentally change the price of this book. All right, we got through all 20 books. I want to thank you guys for watching. Dog was mostly patient. Hopefully it's not too bad on the replay. And we will catch you next time. Bye.